variety pack. Food and friends with Canada's best. From east to west, there and back. Eat North Variety Pack. 'Cause variety's the spice of life.
Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of North Variety Pack. I'm your host Dan Clapson. I'm super excited for tonight. We have a ton of awesome conversations that are about to happen. If you haven't watched the show before, make sure to hit subscribe. We are a mixed bag here at North Variety Pack. We talk food, music, art, and a ton more. Time to bring on my two co-hosts, Deepi Harish and Mairlyn Smith. Hello ladies.
Hello.
Nice to see you both as always. And I just want to cheers to you first. Lovely faces. Cheers.
Cheers.
And this actually makes me think, this is a brand new seltzer called Vizzy. Seltzers are obviously all the rage right now. I think White Claw can be accredited to starting the huge trend 2 years ago in America, and now it's filtered into Canada. Do you two like seltzers? Are you familiar with the drink, and do you have a favorite? Mairlyn?
I like, fizzies and bubbles. And so I do like some, but I've never seen the one that you've got right now. And so I'm really curious, but they really spell summer to me, and it's too frickin' cold here in Toronto right now to think about that.
That is very fair. I feel like Canadian spring can be pretty unforgiving depending on the day or the week. How about you, DP?
I'm the complete opposite. I hate bubbles. I hate fizzy drinks, and so I'm not a fan.
Okay, well, that was a short conversation on seltzers, so I will not talk about how I like them. So we can move on from this.
Okay, so I'm super excited. We have an illustrator on today from the Great Canadian Baking Show, and I don't know if you're aware, but Dan, you're aware. I've been doing the recaps. Have you guys been watching, by the way?
Mm-hmm. It's a great season.
Both of you? You've been watching?
Yes.
It's super interesting and cool to see that these bakers that are on, they could give professionals a run for their money. They're self-taught, amazing bakers. So it's been cool to see how much they've grown through each episode. And I'm excited to talk to our guest. And, the finale's on this week. Are you guys going to watch?
Yes.
So because I do the recaps, I get the screener, so I already watched it. So no spoilers.
No spoilers, yeah.
I promise, but it's exciting.
You've already seen it? Oh my gosh, I hate you.
Yeah, I've been trying to keep it zipped. So
Wait, you mean that reality show competition competitors aren't just locked up in a studio for months and months doing one challenge a week?
Yes, Dan.
Blow my mind.
Oh no. Another thing in my life ruined. No.
But hasn't the pandemic ruined enough?
And I don't know if you know, Toronto or Ontario, we're in another lockdown starting Saturday. Mm-hmm. So it's a lockdown on top of a lockdown. What does this even mean for us, Mayor?
No, it's not really a lockdown because there's too many things that are still opened. It's really too soft a lockdown to do anything as far as I'm concerned. Our vaccines haven't come out enough. And I really think that we should be vaccinating all the essential workers and the school teachers it's kind of a mess. And it's like the very first time, I got to tell you, in this whole pandemic that I sort of went, oh, this is really getting worse and worse. I kept being hopeful, but I don't know. It's not very hopeful right now, just the way things are going here in Ontario. Okay, so let's think about something more positive. Today's April Fool's Day. And I come from a really funny family. And my dad was he was like not a jokester, but, a really funny, witty guy. And he died 4 years ago today. And we figured it was the best joke he ever had on us because they'd given him 10 days to live. And so, but, I think he planned that he was going to go on April 1st. And I just want to give you some of my dad's words of wisdom. Mm-hmm. He said, never buy cheap booze. That was one of his big things. He said to laugh often. And another big one that he always said was always be kind and try your best. But my father was hilarious. And he would enjoy any April Fool jokes. You were posting some stuff today, Dan, about really good jokes. Have you ever guys done like the ultimate April Fool? Like I kind of suck at it. So what about you guys? Dan?
Well, first I want to say I love what you posted about your father today on Instagram. It was really beautiful, and everything you post is always so well written. But it's great food for thought and great inspiration. So I want to say thank you for that first and foremost. But from there, I do enjoy April Fool's Day. Prior to the pandemic, I did do a lot of joke stories in the restaurant industry. This year, I feel like the pandemic is quite heavy, so a lot of people might not have the energy for jokes, especially when you think they're real and realize they're not. It's kind of a letdown, and we don't need any more letdowns these days. But with that said, there was a hilarious joke story made by a ice cream company I think it's out of Toronto, called Sweet and Nice. And they're a Caribbean ice cream company. Deepi, I think you saw it as well. And they launched...
I was going to share the story as well.
Yeah. See, so why don't you go? It's quite hilarious.
Okay, so basically this morning, it's actually happened. So this morning, woke up, and the first press release I got was from this company called Sweet Nice. Yes, Toronto, local, amazing Caribbean ice cream. And they said that they're coming with a new flavor called chicken ice. So then I messaged the PR person right away, and I said, this sounds gross, but I'm intrigued. What is this? And she wrote back, and she's like, Deepi, read till the end and read the disclaimer. And it was an April Fool's Day joke, but segue to actually introduce new flavors that are actually going to be on the market that are delicious.
So yeah, and that's
like they even had like the design and everything on the ice cream package. They could have fooled anybody.
Well, I think that's what a company should do on April Fool's Day. I think you should, if you're a smart brand, you play a joke, but you capture people's attention, and then you kind of shift it somewhere else. And I feel like that was a good example of that, where they had this, obviously, when I was reading the press release, it's like, organic, locally sourced chicken meat for this ice cream flavor. And I'm just like, what? But, but the funny thing was, I don't go on too much of a tangent with this, but hot chicken spices, so that's a Nashville-based dish, I guess. Hot chicken spices are very trendy. So I feel like taking that sort of idea and applying it to jerk chicken and then incorporating actual chicken meat into an ice cream, it's actually not that far from what's been happening already in that realm. So, I mean, I think that's also the sign of a good joke, is when you take something that might be real and people are like, okay, I can see how this is possible. So anyway, I like being fooled at the end of the day in this respect.
Come on, but frozen chicken?
You know what? I'm a try anything once kind of guy, and I feel like I probably would try chicken. Anyway, with that said, I think it's time to bring on our first guest. Kenna Barnes is the illustrator for the Great Canadian Baking Show, and although she doesn't come up with fake products, she does do wonders in terms of helping the contestants of Great Canadian Baking Show bring their dishes to life by way of illustration. So first, we're going to play a little video that kind of showcases how she takes the dessert ideas and brings them to life via artwork. Then we're going to chat with Kenna.
Childhood memories of the Sugar Shack may have inspired her maple walnut bundt cake, but her glaze will pack a very grown-up punch.
Maple liquor, huh?
Yeah, I am making a bundt cake with fermented sweet rice. I don't know if you know about fermented sweet rice, but basically it is halfway to rice wine. So partly fermented, sweetened, is really common in Chinese desserts, and I just remember eating this growing up.
Pairing fermented rice with red bean paste and a chrysanthemum glaze, Sheldon's bundt cake will be topped by a dramatic sugar dragon. Software developer by day, Sheldon spends his nights as part of an all-Asian drag family in Vancouver.
Be the fierce queen that you are.
Perfect, thank you so
got
much.
This. Work. Get out of here. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Kenna Barnes, thank you so much for joining us. I live for your illustrations on this show. It's one of my favorite parts of the series.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so kind.
And it's so nice to see you. And now that we're in season 4 of the series, you've been with it since the inception. How have you evolved as an artist throughout? Because it's my impression that you actually follow around the contestants while things are filming, taking notes, and then you bring it to life afterwards.
Yeah, so they film it first, and then they send me the photos after. And if the illustration or if the bake doesn't quite work out, then I ask the producers about what we do to show exactly what the bakers were trying to do. As an artist, I would say I'm getting a little bit bolder and knowing where I can push things a little bit further, because it is all about whimsy and fun. And at the starting, I was trying so hard to nail exactly that this is bread and this is cake, and now I'm having a little bit more fun with it and making sure it's fun.
Absolutely. Do you sometimes feel, I don't know how to word this, I was going to say, do you ever feel bad when your art looks better than the finished product? But it must be a tough task for you, because you have to you're pulling from their minds of what they want it to look like, and after it doesn't always look like that. So how do you feel when something doesn't turn out like you drew it?
You worded that well. Good job.
Yeah.
Honestly, they're the ones who came up with the concept for it. So I still am so proud of how their bake turns out, even if it doesn't quite work out. A lot of the time they'll message and say, thank you so much for showing what I was trying to do. And I always say, well, you conceptualized it, so thank you for giving me a great concept.
I love that.
I love how, you brought up the word whimsy, and whimsy is it's such a magical word. And I just want to know how you inspired as a little girl. I mean, did you love looking at Alice in Wonderland books, or where does the whimsy come in your creative brain?
I actually used to have whimsy like on my Tumblr page. I was that into it. So it's definitely something that inspires me. I did love Alice in Wonderland, although my favorite was Aristocats out of all the Disney movies. And especially animated wise, I loved Looney Tunes and just how far-fetched and fantastical it could be. I loved that they pushed your imagination really far.
What kind of advice you have for, somebody who may be an illustrator or feeling very creative? How did you go from where you started as an illustrator to getting on the show? Do you have any advice, or is there an arc to your career, or like, boom, do you want this show?
Mine was a little boom, but I was, if I'm being honest, but mine was, I did start in animation. So I was working my way up and drawing props and things like that before I landed Great Canadian Baking Show. But as far as artists who are trying to find their boom or to get started, just keep drawing, just like keep doing it. Practice makes perfect. And I'm sure people have seen my advocacy on Instagram lately about this type of subject for young artists. And so my second piece of advice would just be to support each other and try not to get too caught up in the competition of it.
That's great advice. I like that, not competing with each other. Great advice, Kenna.
Thank you.
Hi, Kenna.
Hi.
I feel like you kind of answered this with Dan's question, but I'm going to jump into it a bit more. So when you create these illustrations for a Great Canadian Baker, do you sit down with every single baker for every single challenge and get them to describe what they're going to make? Or do you simply just talk to the producers about this?
No, so they've spoken to the producers already about what they're trying to do. And so I chat with the producers about it after the fact. I try not to talk to the bakers too much about it. Don't want to get them too caught up about what it's going to look like on TV when they have to do next episode.
Do you find that it might become broken telephone a bit if it's going from the bakers to the producers then to you?
I
mean, I wouldn't know whether it has or not.
I feel like sometimes producers like broken telephones, but yeah.
And my second question is, how would you say that the process of creating food illustrations are different from creating illustrations for, say, like a greeting card?
That's a hard answer because greeting cards can be odd. For food illustration, I think that there's just inspiration everywhere, which is really helpful. I mean, my favorite thing to do is grocery shop, which is sort of lame. And that's been a hard part of COVID, is that I love to just browse and wander the grocery store for a really long time. And now you can't really do that. For a greeting card, I think it's a lot more consumer focused and what's going to sell well. You're thinking about the seasons and the market and that type of thing a lot more than just what you are drawing.
Cool.
I love that you mentioned loving grocery shopping, because it is also, no, I'm not joking, it's one of my favorite things to do too. And I thought, it's funny, aren't you kind of happy and sad we still have this show, because we had you on a year ago and we're still stuck in our houses. But my roundabout point with that is that I love grocery shopping, especially earlier in the pandemic, because I thought it was one of the only things I could do when I left the house. So yeah. I loved it. And I disagree with you. I stay in the grocery store as long as I goddamn can. And I look down every aisle, and I love that. And I think that that's where I find a lot of inspiration when I'm going to cook, because actually my partner really doesn't like this about me, but I don't like bringing grocery lists to the grocery store, because I just like to, I wander around. I mean, I have like my core things that I need, but I do come home with a lot of other things I don't need. But then it results in me cooking a lot. So I appreciate that you said that.
For sure. I love it. I try to have a bit of a meal plan, usually flipping through like all of the food magazines I've picked up that week or that month. And we shape a bit of an idea of what we're going to eat that week. But I usually come home with at least a bag of mostly random produce that I haven't tried before and I want and then eat.
Exactly. I mean, I don't draw, but I definitely get creative with it at home. But one thing that I loved that you did during the pandemic is that you created a whole bunch of free coloring sheets for people, which I thought was amazing because it's giving people something to do when they're bored at home. So how did that idea come up, and then what sort of traction did you gain from it?
I read something that said that things are not going well, you should find how you can help, like what you have to offer that can help things. And in the middle of a pandemic, obviously I'm not a doctor or a teacher or anything like that, so there's not a whole lot that I could do. And all I could think about was the overwhelming anxiety that I was feeling and how I know that what solves that is coloring and outlining, specifically outlining the coloring sheets. And so I thought it was a great way of handing that to other people so that they have something that can soothe them a little bit. And downloading for free was probably just the easiest option.
No, I think it was a very kind thing to do, and obviously a very creative thing to do. And but before we let you go, one thing that I love about your art, and we see it often, it pops up on social feeds, and obviously we see it on the Great Canadian Baking Show. It just, again, it has so much whimsy and it's so imaginative and magical. And it reminds me of my favorite food scene from a film, which we've talked about before, and it's the scene from Hook where Robin Williams with the Lost Boys, he can't see the food, then he sees it, and it's like this amazing spread of all these colorful things. Is there one scene from a movie that you love that really inspires you?
Okay, well, that you're going to make me cry, so. Great scene. All of Julie and Julia. I think every food scene in that movie is great. And for some reason, the one that always pops into my head is I love the scene in It's Complicated when Meryl Streep and Steve Martin are making the chocolate croissants. I don't know why. I don't even think it's that accurate of a food scene. I just love that one.
I think at the end of the day, it's like we don't realize that food is present for most interactions in most people's lives. I don't think we think about that until we take a moment to think about it.
Yeah, one of my big interests is how memory and food relate to each other. I'm trying to dig into that. I think that it's such an interesting psychological phenomenon.
Absolutely. I can't agree more, and I can't wait to see the finale of Great Canadian Baking Show on Sunday, where I'm sure all of the remaining bakers will think of that moment for the rest of their lives. Yeah. And I can't wait to see your illustration. Awesome. Thank you, Kenna. It's always nice chatting with you.
Thank you, me.
Yes, anytime.
Oh, I love that you brought up food memory because that is one of my favorite things to talk about. I have pitched that idea to Cityline so many times where all of the guest hosts on that show would talk about their food memory and then show the food or make the food because it really connects us to a place and a time and it can just transport you back there. So yeah, I love her. I just love her.
Kenna's great.
I love that you brought up the grocery store shopping because I love doing that. Actually, that's one of my favorite things to do on a date too. To
a date? Okay, tell me more. Can you walk me through this date?
Another show.
Like, are you sneaking like tumblers of wine in coffee mugs, or are we just like, is this like a sober date?
It's just fun to go grocery shopping like on a date and see what they pick out, and then you plan what you're gonna make for dinner.
Okay. I like that.
I like that.
Yeah. Should Mairlyn or I find ourselves on dates in the future? Then hopefully not, but who's to know? Anyway, but no, I love chatting with Kenna. I think there's very few people in Canada that focus on illustration when it comes to food, and I think she's really excelled at that and done so well, and is obviously so passionate. So it's really, really amazing to chat with her.
Yeah, Dan, I really like the question you asked her about, do you feel bad better than, what happened? And I love it when she said, what they told her what the concept was. And I that kind of connection in. And that was a really great question. I'm giving you a big kudos for that one.
Absolutely. It reminded me of the one time I thought I would make a potato salad birthday cake for myself for my birthday. And it didn't, and it did not look very nice.
Potato salad cake
in a spring form pan. Anyway, perhaps it's a story for another day. But on that note, I think it's time we move over to our musical guest. Denise Valle is a very talented R&B singer based in Calgary, originally from Saskatoon. We're going to show a little visualizer of her recently released EP, Edge, and then chat with her about music making and more. Denise, thank you so much for being on the show with us tonight.
Guys.
You know, I love your EP. I've loved your music for a while now. And just oh, hold on. I was maybe playing also the live stream on my phone and just turned on. Anyway, this is why we love doing live shows. Anyway, Denise, sorry. Let's talk a bit about how your EP came to be.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be. My EP, I would say a couple years in the process of making. I actually just moved here to Calgary, Alberta from Saskatchewan in December of 2019. And I found a producer here who I thought really captured my sound that I was trying to go for, which was pop, R&B, and soul, which isn't something that you often hear in like Western Canada. And so that's what brought me to Calgary. And I was just able to release it a little bit over a month ago. So.
Well, very, very exciting. And I love the EP from start to finish. And I feel like one thing that I really like about each song is I feel like each song, obviously your voice is amazing, but I feel like the beats really propel each song. How do you work with the production team to ensure that like people, you know, I hate to call it like it's a bob, but you know, things that people get stuck in their ears and they want to hear it again and again?
Yeah, we were really intentional about how each song was going to kind of go into each other. So it's fun to hear that you kind of picked up on that too. I think for me, each track was inspired by maybe the sonics or the way that an artist would make me feel and wanting to see how I could do that in my own interpretation using stories of my own life. And you know, I think what I love about music is that, you know, there's going to be somebody who's going to connect with it. And I don't have to be an artist for everyone. But if I stay true to the sounds that I feel speak to me, I know there's going to be somebody else who connects with that.
I love that too. I'm always really intrigued about, you know, the whole, okay, everybody's brain is wired a different way, but there's a lot of people that are, you know, like 100% creative. And then there's another group of people I think that have a creativity that could have gone scientific too. Do you have another part of your brain that had you not gone into music? Was there something else that you would have wanted to do?
I love that question. I don't think I've been asked that, so that's really fun. You know what? I think it's funny because I'm just thinking about arts and just the way that it always really spoke to me. I remember thinking, could I be a cartoonist? That was like something that I loved. And I think also music and music therapy, that was also something. I know that's still like a creative sphere, but I love people, honestly. And I love to know the way that their minds work, their emotions work. So I think creative problem solving probably would have been in my field as well. So.
Ooh, I love that answer. Ooh.
So I love R&B guests on here. I bitch to Dan all the time that I want to see more hip hop, more R&B, because that's more my speed, that's my jam. So this is awesome. Have people ever told you, I feel like your sound is a little bit like Jessie Ware?
Oh my, that is such a compliment. Thank you.
I love Jessie Ware. And yeah, when I was listening to snippets of your music, I was like, she has that vibe. It's a little dancey, it's a little electronic, R&B, it's a bit of everything.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. Wildest Moments was one of my favorite Jessie Ware tracks. And I remember hearing it and it stopped me in my track. And I remember thinking, I want to make music like that. So that's such a cool compliment that you even hear that. So
that's the first artist I thought about when I heard your sound. Okay, so my question, first of all, you shared a stage with Quest, which is huge. For those of you that don't know, Questlove is one of the biggest DJs in the world, one of the best drummers in the world. He's also like a profound culinary food lover. He's a Renaissance man. But the fact that you got to share a stage with him, what was that experience like? This is part one of my question.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Thank you. Like I was mentioning, I'm from Saskatchewan, and each year we host the Saskatchewan Jazz Festival. So the Roots have been, I think, there maybe 3 to 4 times. And what was really cool about it is this particular show was set up in the Remain Modern. And so it was this art gallery. And basically I got to open up for him. And then the next part of the night was him DJing. And so it was basically my biggest goal was, if you hear me for like 10 seconds, I'll just be happy. And that happened at my last track. He came in and I saw his, like, obviously he's like such an iconic person. He's just easy to catch in a room. Just saw him like going through the space, setting up his DJ booth. And I was like, success, this is amazing.
Amazing.
So, yeah, it was just such a cool moment.
He also just seems like the nicest guy. Part 2 of my question is talking about beats. Who would be your dream producer or beat maker that you would want to collab with? Not an artist that you'd want to sing with, but more produce.
Pharrell or Timberland?
I was thinking Timberland, Missy. So I could see that.
Yes, those would be huge bucket list people. Even if I could be in the same room as them, I know that I'm going to learn something from just being part of a space with like that caliber of musicianship. So here's hope.
Manifest. I could see it happening.
All right. I like it.
So Denise, last question before we let you go. I'm also from Saskatoon, so we share that in common. I think a lot of people associate the music community in the Prairie region with country acts, roots, and just singer-songwriters in general. So what can you say about the R&B music community within the Prairies?
Yeah, I love that question. Well, one, it does exist. So that's like a fun thing. And I think you'll be surprised to see what's going to be coming out of Saskatoon in the next like 5 to 10 years. Because I do see an influx of people being really inspired. I mean, if you look at the charts, like regardless of the regions of where people live, hip hop is at the top. How can that not influence the rest of the regions? So I would say there's pros and cons to it. I think the pro is it's a very small community, so it's very tight knit. And then also when people get a chance to hear R&B live, they're like, oh my gosh, this exists in the Prairies. And so that's a really fun moment to have that as an artist. And I think like the con is that sometimes infrastructures don't exist to be like really uphold those styles and genres. But I'm really encouraged to see some of these artists that are coming out of Saskatchewan who have influence from those spaces and surprise people probably across Canada to see that type of music is happening out here.
I agree. It's sort of akin to the fact that, no offense to my Toronto co-hosts, but I feel like people find it hard to believe we have food in the Prairies. So I feel like maybe it's the same. Some level. But anyway, Denise, thank you so much for chatting today and sharing your music with us. I love the new EP Edge. It's wonderful, and I can't wait to see what else you put out.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome.
I appreciate it.
Nice to see you. And that brings us to the end of another episode of E-North Variety Pack. Thank you to my two lovely co-hosts, Deepi Harish, Mairlyn Smith. We'll see you all next Thursday with new guests and new conversations.
E-North Variety Pack. Food and friends with Canada's best. From east to west, there and back. E-North Variety Pack. 'Cause variety's the spice of life.